Welcome back to Comical Opinions, where we read them first to save you time and money. This is a review of Haunted House, a love story number 4 from Blood Moon Comics. In this issue, the house enters a new decade and possibly a chance at happiness when the Grinning Man offers the house a chance to reunite with Sebastian, its long lost love. But before we get started, please like, share, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell for notification. Your thumbs up helps keep us going, and it would be greatly appreciated. So let's get into the title credits. First of all, Haunted House Love Story number 4 is written and drawn by Winston Gambro. Joshua J. Beck contributed to the 3D art for the house and the modeling for the backgrounds. Colors by Rob Kloma, and the unique wallpaper designs, which actually play a part in this issue, are done by Julia Twala. So to recap where we left off in the previous issue, and each issue explores sort of different realms of emotional conflict between couples and families. In the last issue, it was all about anger and rage, where a young married couple were under stress from the husband's overbearing parents who were trying to push the couple to have kids, get a better job, do all the things that sort of push them in forward into the traditional archetypes of a nuclear family. And the pressure of the parents eventually drove a wedge of rage between the husband and wife when they were both conflicted about their own personal desires for how they wanted their marriage to be, and were uh, angered by how each other's expectations weren't being met, almost to the point where their rage bubbled over into possible violence. Now, at the last minute, they sort of came to their senses and moved on from the house, but that sense of rage permeated everything that was happening with their relationship, and they eventually came to their senses. And now we have moved on, but they left the house, and now the house is left to sit with all that negative emotion sort of clawing to the walls and the furniture and all the underpinnings of what makes that house alive and possible. Now we move into issue number 4. So in Haunted House, the love story number 4, the issue is self-titled Bargaining. And in this issue, a young couple comes to the house because they are investigating paranormal activity in neighboring towns and cities and in their travels. And they believe this town has a history that makes paranormal activity possible, even to the point where the couple references Sebastian because they've done the history and the research in the house. Now, before they get too far into it, the Grinning Man makes an appearance and is able to communicate with the house. And he says to the house, if you split up this couple and cause them to betray each other, I will reunite you with Sebastian, who is the creator of the house and the long lost love of the house. And the house agrees to the bargain. And so, as the young couple by the names of Dean and Pearl are undergoing the paranormal investigation, they set up an EVP or an EVP device that gives the house an opportunity through electromagnetic uh, energy to try and communicate. So basically, it's a voice box. And when they start to hear that the house is given a voice, they start arguing over what questions to ask and how to ask it, and essentially their egos and their desire to be the one that's always right start to get in the way, and the possibility that they might have finally achieved their goal, which is to communicate with a haunted house, creates a massive blow up between the two of them because they each want to control what's happening, control how they interact with the house, and control being right, contrary to the other's wants and needs. And it turns into a scenario where effectively they storm off from each other when they have what they've always wanted right there in front of them. Eventually, they sort of figure out, okay, we're arguing over nothing, and so what's going to happen is the house tries to force the issue to make good on its bargain to the Grinning Man, and it attacks them individually and forces them to pit themselves against each other by making them choose to say, you choose who dies. And in the course of that ultimatum, the couple sort of basically realizes that they'd rather sacrifice themselves than sacrifice the other, and that brings them back together. And the Grinning Man in that scenario says, well, now you've screwed up and you've reneged on our bargain, and therefore it's all bets are off, and you will not be reunited with Sebastian. And that leads to a cliffhanger when the Grinning Man decides to take matters into his own hands, and the issue gets incredibly bloody and violent out of the blue, which is sort of a departure from the previous issues. So, interesting fact about this particular series: the different issues explore different facets of emotional conflict between couples and families. And so the issues coming up, I should say, the next issue coming up, which is going to be issue 5, which will be the penultimate issue in this series, is going to be exploring depression, and that has a direct correlation to the cliffhanger, which we won't spoil in this review. So, positives and negatives. What do we like about Haunted House Love Story number 4? We like how it's exploring where the writer, let's see, yeah, Winston Gambro. How we like how the writer Winston Gambro is exploring the ideas of the house facilitating different forms of conflict and uh, emotional spikes between married couples and families, and how that's explored from different angles, from different perspectives, and also as a plus. This is the first time we actually got to see a little bit more interaction, a little bit of idea of who and what the Grinning Man is and what he wants. Up until this point, the Grinning Man has just sort of made these weird appearances as a side character that's definitely creepy and definitely weird, and it looks like there's more to his presence than acting as a side character. But we find out he never ages, and now this is the first time we're actually interacting with him for what he truly wants, which in this case is souls. Um, so his presence now kind of informs who he is, and now we know that there's a sort of a malignant character that's hanging out that has a direct interest in the house, and also his presence leads to a pretty strong cliffhanger that will make the next issue possible, which is depression. So it's a pretty strong episode, or I should say, pretty strong issue, and definitely leans more into the horror aspects. Where up through issues 1 through 3, it was more sort of subtle horror. This one really leans into the horror in a strong and heavy way. The what we didn't like about the issue is the subheading for this one is betrayal, or I should say, I'm sorry, bargaining. And you definitely see the bargaining aspects of it, but you don't really see exactly how the house through the Grinning Man's bargain was supposed to split them up, and when the Grinning Man wanted the couple to betray each other. You don't really get a sense of how strongly the sense of betrayal would exist between between the husband and wife who are paranormal investigators. The house does his best to try and split them up, but it does it through force, and so the idea of bargaining and betrayal really doesn't come into play. It just sort of pits them against each other in a very surreal and very kind of out of the blue horror type scenario where the house literally grabs them and forces them to choose each other. And you kind of get the idea of bargaining and betrayal, but it's sort of heavy handed. It doesn't really speak to the layers of why the couple would betray each other, because you know very little about them, because so much of the time is spent first with the family that comes to visit the house to consider buying it and decide that they don't want to, and then later with the conversations with the Grinning Man. So this issue gets very little time with the couple to kind of get to know what forms the foundation of their relationship and where they were coming from, uh, much less so than compared to any other prior issue. So the whole aspect of why the relationship is solid versus not, and why it would split apart, doesn't get as much play. So you kind of have to fill in the blanks on your own, which is not great when you're considered that's the whole foundation of what makes this series so interesting. Let's talk about the art very quickly. This was a great issue by Gambro. The You get a lot of kind of creepy moments with the Grinning Man, as he's much more of a strong presence in this issue. You get an opportunity to kind of see how the young couple, Pearl and Dean, experience paranormal activity in the house, and how they sort of react to strange developments as they pop up out of nowhere. And there's a stronger emphasis on unique and creepy imagery and art as the house literally comes to life to try and kill them out of an opportunity to make good on its bargain to the Grinning Man. So overall, strong art. It's still very kind of soft, sedate coloring. But when the violence happens, there's definitely some violence in this issue. Uh, Gambro makes great use of saturated tones to reflect uh, hits and strikes and a few violent impacts to bring the point home in a dramatic way. So, final comments. What do we think about Haunted House Love Story number 4? One of the stronger issues in the series from a horror aspect or from a horror point of view. But on the flip side, the time spent with the young couple is the least of the 4 issues so far. So you don't get the level of depth and layers of emotional rift that exists between them, and see how that it comes apart and then comes back together. So on the one side, more horror, which is good, but on the downside, the emotional depth is not quite there, not quite as strong as it has been in the prior issues. So a little bit of a mixed bag, but still strong overall from the aspect of delivering a haunted house story. Therefore, we're going to give Haunted House a love story number 4 an 8 out of 10. I hope you enjoyed this review. But before you leave, please like, share, comment, subscribe to Comical Opinions for more comic review and analysis every week. I'm Gabriel Hernandez, your publisher and EIC. You have a great day.